good morning to all of you. After listening to the insights on the health insurance aspects from a public sector or from a government viewpoint, I would like to present to you what a private sector person would view health insurance trends currently as. If you notice that in the recent past, we have seen a lot of industry activity that has happened in health insurance. The regulator does a lot of activity in terms of the number of committees that have been formed to standardize health insurance parameters, health insurance formats, and also to standardize wordings in health insurance policies. We have regular seminars which are organized by CII, by FICCI, by ASSOCHAM, where you have this reports being discussed and probably recommendations also going to the regulator. There are also seminars where you actually discuss about importing models for health insurance from other countries. You have managed healthcare or NHS, which is maybe suitable for a certain kind of demography in another country, may not be suitable for the kind of demography that we have here. And hospitals obviously who are introducing high-end medical technology. But if you look at the ground reality, we still have a large population of consumers who are not clear on what their rights under healthcare or health insurance is. Processes, in fact, if you look at the public sector, private sector, health insurance companies, processes still not standardized. You have an increased intervention from consumer courts, which means that probably that the interpretation of health insurance wordings, policies is still different amongst different insurers, and that's why you have in consumer courts which come in and interpret those. On the healthcare side, you have almost a defunct medical council at the state levels as well as the central level. And insurance reforms, obviously, as we see, it's still a victim to political discretion. We have been hearing about it since the last decade, probably, which has still not happened. If you look at the health insurance market, last financial year, the general insurance premium overall was around 58,300 crores. The private sector obviously contributing a little more than the public sector. If you look at health insurance premium per se, the growth has been at almost 19%. Private sector obviously growing at a higher rate because you have a diktat from the government for the public sector to reduce their loss ratios. The irony in health insurance again is that when we discuss health insurance, we always speak about loss ratios. It's never about making profit in it. So health insurance has been treated that way, that if you do health insurance in any company, it is about making losses. If you look at the percentage of health insurance as a part of general insurance premium, it has remained between 20 to 24%. It's not gone above that till now. And whatever growth that we see in health insurance premium, this 19% growth that we see, this comes not from increased coverage if you actually look at it. It comes from more as a correction of premium, where probably you had lower premiums, insurance companies increasing premiums, and those premiums coming to the right levels is what increases the overall market. But it's not, does not translate into increased coverage as such. We have seen in the recent, maybe last 5-6 years, various state government health schemes and central government health schemes which have come in. Looking at the healthcare delivery market, okay, again from the perspective of insurer, the way we look at is that health insurance now actually has become a lucrative source of healthcare financing from the provider side. You still have a supplier-induced demand, okay, very, very prominent, where the supplier decides, the healthcare provider decides what is the kind of treatment to be given, what are the services to be given, instead of what evidence-based medicine that should be practiced. Outpatient treatment, yes, a very important component which can help a lot in reducing the burden on the inpatient treatment facilities, but that's still a source for increasing bed occupancy in hospitals. So what you have in outpatient treatment is that you treat OPDs to convert all OP patients into IP patients and keep your bed occupancy high. A very important transformation which has happened if you look at the hospital industry, that you see that it's slowly being transformed from a hospital to a hospitality industry. Not that it is not important, you need to have hospitality in it. But if you look at when we earlier used to go to hospitals, you used to hear of general wards or a private ward maybe, but today when you go to hospitals, you hear of these kind of rooms which you usually find in a hotel, right? You will have presidential suites, you will have sea-facing daycare suites, you will have Rosewood Lounge, which obviously not what is expected in a hospital but in a hotel. Pricing of services. Okay, when you look at the way business plans are done for hospitals, how do they do their business plans? We would expect that a business plan probably is done based on whatever what kind of patient flow you will have for this year, and then plan your income based on that. But what we have noticed is that you do your business plan saying that these are the number of stents that I need to utilize this year. So if I have somehow bought this many number of stents, I need to put that into patients whether they require it or not. Okay, number of knees that I need to replace. Okay, how many knee replacements I have to achieve this year. So whether that's required or not, anyone having a knee pain, you need to have those knee replaced. Cesarean sections, required or not, we need to ensure that that many number of cesarean sections are performed. So that's how, probably not on paper, but that's the what stays at the backside of a hospital business plan. Again, a disclaimer is this is mainly from the viewpoint of an insurer. I would think that probably from a hospital viewpoint, there would be other views on this. What are the market discrepancies we are looking at? Very rightly, as Mr. Sharma was also discussing, that in government schemes where you have this RSPY and the NRHM schemes which have come in, we do hear a lot about the success of these schemes, about the kind of benefits it's providing, but we do not know how credible the audit processes for enrollment of the members are. How credible is the claim process, whether you are paying the claims to the right person, whether you are paying claims for which actually the person was treated or admitted in the hospital. Obviously, this has created an investment opportunity for hospitals. There were areas which needed healthcare facilities. They never came up, but the certain government schemes have given an opportunity for infrastructure to be developed there. Leakages and ethics, you still have areas where these government schemes are used, like not very far from Hyderabad in a district you had a few years ago where in a district almost 80% of the women population underwent hysterectomies, whether required or not. Because that is where you have money coming in, a fixed package coming in, so you do a procedure, you get the money out of it. If you look at pricing, now when we talk about health insurance, it is very important that we link health care delivery and health insurance together. If you look at health services pricing, when you look at hospital pricing, you have frequent revisions. There is no limit on what are the number of revisions in the hospital tariff which can be done in a year. We receive probably 6 revisions in a year saying that now I'm increasing my bed rate, now I'm increasing my doctor fees, next day the diagnostic rates go up. The number of headings under which bills come in, you have surcharges, service charges, luxury charges, administrative charges. And in addition to all this, the government still gives tax breaks for hospitals which do research. Obviously, if you look at the trend nowadays, you will find the word research in every hospital name because it gives tax breaks for them. How much of research is actually done over there? I don't know if anyone actually verifies that they do research or not. Health insurance pricing, on the other hand, the people who finance it, the health insurers, no premium revisions are allowed if you don't justify it. Okay, that you have to justify the premium revision. Why is it required? Why do you need to increase the premium? Whether there is a capacity in the population to pay for higher premiums. And obviously, there is an additional service tax when you even buy health insurance. So, going by the above, where you are talking about linking health care pricing and health insurance pricing, when you look at pricing of hospitals currently, we at least as health insurers do not find any logical basis on which this pricing or the tariffs come up. Tariffs, probably the logical way of doing them would be based on an activity-based costing, what resources go into it. But how is it done is that you look at the hospital which is nearby the competitor hospital, and you decide if he is offering this service at this much money, how do I offer it at a more competitive price? So you have not gone into how did that hospital price its services. It is just that I need to look at some base and do my pricing. And this irrational pricing has grown over the years where you do not actually know what is the base price of that service. This data has moved into insurance companies now, where insurance companies have a lot of data now on the procedure prices, but we don't know whether these are the actual base cost of those services. Now, when we do our pricing based on this data from hospitals, obviously we arrive at premiums which would also be irrational, because you are already using irrational data from hospitals. Okay, and if you look at what has happened in the last few years, when the public sector took up an initiative of standardizing prices, you had a body of insurers called GIPSA which said that now we will go ahead and standardize prices across the industry and we will offer packages to hospitals. So what did they do? They took all claims data probably of the last 10 years. They said that if a angiography has costed 25,000 in one hospital A, if it has costed 15,000 hospital B, so they averaged out prices based on the hospital grades and arrived at an average price. Obviously, we don't know who benefited from it. I just have a reference table from the GIPSA rates which are negotiated across the country. Okay, this is from one of the hospitals, corporate hospitals in Bombay, where if you look at the hospital rate, okay, which the hospital actually puts on its tariff list, and what was negotiated by the insurers, okay, that is the kind of variation that you see. And obviously, insurers ended up being very happy that we have negotiated something which is very low. Hospitals were very happy offering that price because they know internally still they are making a lot of money on it. And this is what happens when you move ahead in an industry doing a lot of changes, but your base data itself has been very irrational. And we still don't know whether the hospital rates itself that you see over here is a cost over there. Okay. Now, coming to what initiatives that health insurers are taking, okay. Obviously, health insurers now are moving towards reducing acquisition costs through direct marketing, web sales. A lot of health insurers are now trying to approach customers bypassing the traditional agency method where you have an agent selling health insurance, because that brings in a lot of mis-selling that used to happen, where people were promised certain benefits which are not even inherent in the policy, and that's why it is better for insurance companies now to establish a direct rapport with the consumer, and it also helps in increasing the transparency in the system. There was a third-party administration model which came up in 2001 when the insurance industry got privatized, the TPA model. Obviously, it was aimed at reducing costs, bringing in more strict controls in the system. What it ended up as in probably in 5 years till 2006 was that it increased leakages. It also brought in some kind of a nexus between hospitals and TPAs, which was kept away from insurers, and you had a cost of administration of the schemes rising. You have, as of today, we have maybe around 6 to 7 private insurers who have removed TPAs and they're administering the services in-house. You have the entire public sector now moving towards in-house servicing. Okay, they have set up a joint venture along with LIC where the public sector will have its own company to service its policies. And obviously, our company, Future Generali, also has an in-house service provider, and we have experienced that you can actually service policies at 50% of the cost of what you pay to TPAs. Insurers are also moving towards building a win-win model with providers, where the emphasis earlier was on having large networks. You know, when the privatization started, people said that we'll offer a choice to consumers having 10,000 hospitals on a network. That concept has slowly changed, where insurance companies now are trying to have quality networks, maybe a smaller network, but with quality providers. And a lot of product variations will come in, because earlier there was a concept of 24 hours hospitalization where providers used to force people to stay for 24 hours if you have an insurance policy to get the claim. You have product variations coming in where now daycare surgeries are covered, you have OPD covered, you have alternative medicine now also being offered under insurance, which helps at least in bringing down any of the frauds from the provider side. On the maybe at the lower income segment or the lower economic status population, a lot of promotion of micro insurance that is being done, where insurers now are handing over the administration of schemes to the community itself. And it makes a lot of sense when you hand over risk sharing to the community, for the community itself to understand that what is the kind of risk that we are entailing. Okay, there are when you have a state government or a national scheme saying that we are launching a scheme with 1 lakh sum insured, no one has asked the population there, do you need a 1 lakh sum insured over there? The population's need maybe of 25,000 rupees, the population's need maybe of 10,000 rupees. So let the population decide the scheme, let them decide what is the contribution, and then let them decide what is the extent of benefits. You will see that schemes function much more efficiently over there. Okay. On the corporate insurance side, if you look at Mediclaim, the losses actually come from group health insurance, which corporates buy. And now that you have 24 insurance companies in the market, you can always get a lower premium if you move from one company to other every year. So for 24 years, you won't have a problem. You have an insurance this year with some A company, next year with B company, and you could be offered a lower premium. In the long term, what it does is that you end up making the entire structure unviable, where you keep on increasing the losses year on year and your premiums go on rising. So it makes sense at least to have a long-term relationship, understand what is the kind of trends in the healthcare market, why the losses are rising, and then decide on changing the insurer. You could always change an insurer and get a lower price, but after a certain period of time, you will not find an insurer who will actually take that policy because it would have become unviable. You are seeing insurers now moving from curative to preventive care, the emphasis, where there are schemes where they give loyalty points for if a person goes and buys health food, if there are periodic health checkups, or any change in lifestyle, if a person actually starts going to a gym, you have the insurer actually providing loyalty points on that, and which could be actually be redeemed in exchange for a premium discount or something. Insurers now are providing access to physicians directly to the customer for obtaining primary health advice. And a lot of data sharing that has started recently in the industry. You have a lot of data sharing that is happening on claim frauds. So insurance companies have started sharing data of which are the hospitals probably involved in this, who are the customers involved in this, so that there is a move in the industry to slowly block those leakages. And portability of insurance, which came in last year, where an insured person could move from one insurer to another without losing benefits. Okay. So what we expect as what we expect in the near future for an urgent resolution of the issues that are there is that health insurance being a highly regulated industry and healthcare delivery, obviously we don't have a regulator. So you have hospitals which are operating with a different name when licenses are cancelled in certain cases. Accreditation, again, very important, but there are multiple agencies doing it. So probably insurers need to come together and decide on these standards, who needs to do it, and which kind of accreditation is acceptable. A clear differentiation between clinical medicine and insurance medicine. Because the fight today between insurers and hospitals is that what is the concept of clinical medicine may not always be what is followed by insurance companies. You may have something which are medically necessary, but obviously they need not be always insurable. That distinction needs to be maintained. Again, a demarcation in role of government and private health insurance. There has to be clear demarcation that you can't have insurance companies and especially private insurance companies functioning on a social motive. Okay, there has to be some kind of a profit objective there if that structure has to be viable in the long run. Who goes into the rural organized sector, who goes into the urban sector, that's also important to define. And health insurance coverage, if you look at it, the way the mass schemes, government schemes are done today, again going to a tendering process. Obviously, we are setting a prescription for market failure because when you go into tendering process, it will slowly and slowly keep on lowering prices, but the healthcare costs are keeping on increasing. To end with, I think to make the market stable, health insurance stable, we need to have product development linked to the customer base and what service levels expected. You have insurance companies' product now coming in with different packaging saying essential, what is desirable, what is luxury, and each can be separated. Hospitals need to offer an optimum choice of services where we say that you don't only, as we saw, you don't only offer presidential suites, but also have some option for the normal population coming in. We very urgently need a healthcare regulator. That has been a deficiency in the entire market structure. And insurers need to be made accountable for consumer services like issuance of policy, the timelines for enrollment of members and processing of claims. Thank you.